Hey everyone, I hope you are having a great day. I am really excited to share with you my What If Darth Nihilus Returned fanfic. I've been replaying the Knights of the Old Republic games, which I hope to be able to start streaming on this channel once in a while. But replaying these games have really made me love the depth of characters like Darth Nihilus. This story will be done in 3 parts. The first part, which is this part, will cover how Nihilus could come back. The second will cover what he does after returning, and the third part will cover how or if he is stopped. This story will contain a blend of legends and canon material, but that shouldn't be a surprise as Nihilus is, well, a Legends character. I hope you enjoy this fanfic as much as I enjoyed writing it. Darth Nihilus was a Sith Lord who existed almost 4,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. Nihilus was once a man who was caught in the devastation caused by the activation of the superweapon known as a mass shadow generator while on Malachor V. As a result, he became a wound in the Force that caused him to always hunger for Force energy. Nihilus was discovered by the Sith Lord Darth Traya, who promised to teach him how to quench this hunger. Darth Nihilus' affliction progressed to the point where he was forced to encase his spirit into a mask and armor as his body quickly deteriorated. Nihilus would eventually meet his demise at the hands of Mitra Surik, who took the mask that contained his spirit. The mask would end up on the ancient Sith planet of Korriban. Now, for this story, let's work on the assumption that Nihilus' spirit remained within the mask, just waiting for someone to find it and bring Nihilus back into the physical world. Our story takes place during the first year of the Clone Wars, during Count Dooku's captivity on Florum. If you're not familiar with this story arc, after an attempt by Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi to capture Dooku, the Sith Lord is forced to crash land his solar sailor on the nearest planet. After escaping the Jedi, Dooku is picked up by Hondo Ohnaka and his pirates. They take Dooku back to Florum. Here's where our story takes a turn from the original timeline. Instead of being held captive until Obi-Wan and Anakin arrive on Florum, Dooku is able to escape and steal a ship from the pirates who held him captive. However, this ship would not get him as far as he needed, and Dooku would be forced to hobble the ship to the nearby ancient Sith planet, Korriban. He knew of this planet from Sith holocrons and his master's teaching. Surely there would be something more helpful to him on this old Sith sanctuary. Landing on Korriban, Count Dooku began to explore what had clearly become a burial site for ancient Sith long dead. These Sith represented chaos that only made Dooku more proud to be a part of a more organized Sith order. The Sith Order had come a long way since Darth Bane instituted the Rule of Two. Now he and his master would reap the benefits of 1,000 years of planning. He was apprenticed to the most powerful Sith Lord ever, Darth Sidious. Dooku was proud to be such. Eventually, Dooku stumbled upon the grave of Darth Nihilus. He had heard about the unique affliction this Sith Lord had suffered from. It was an unquenchable hunger for power. And curiosity got the best of Dooku as he opened the tomb of Nihilus. Sitting inside the otherwise empty tomb was a mask and a holocron. Dooku thought it was curious that there were no remains of a body in the tomb. He reached for the mask and holocron, and immediately he felt a powerful connection with another being. Dooku was eventually able to call a separatist cruiser to pick him up from Korriban. And taking Nihilus' mask with him and the holocron, Dooku returned to his home planet of Serrano, where he could investigate the mysterious artifacts in private, away from even Darth Sidious. Dooku would activate Nihilus' holocron and see the remnants of the Sith Lord's soul projected before him in the form of a hologram. He was wearing the very mask that Dooku now held in his hands. Though Nihilus spoke a language far from basic, Dooku was able to understand what he was saying. He looked down at the mask in his hands. Could it be that the mask was connecting the 2 Sith Lords who otherwise were separated by thousands of years? Slowly, Dooku raised the mask to his face, though he didn't actually remember making the decision to do so. There was something drawing him to the mask. Soon, the face of Count Dooku was covered by the face of Darth Nihilus. Immediately, Dooku could sense Nihilus in his head. His innermost thoughts no longer belonged to him. They were now shared by a consuming darkness, all flowing from the mask. It would only be a matter of days before the spirit of Nihilus that had been lying dormant in the mask would take over Count Dooku's mind and body. Dooku was no more. Instead of Count Dooku, Darth Nihilus stood in the middle of Dooku's office on Serrano. Nihilus was ready to continue his unending quest to consume all of the Force energy in the galaxy. In many ways, he sensed that the galaxy had changed. But in many ways, it was as he had left it generations ago. He sensed great conflict, a war between Jedi and Sith. This was something he was familiar with, and the dark side never seemed stronger. Holo reports would bring news of the overnight destruction of Count Dooku's homeworld of Serrano. It didn't make sense that the Count's planet would be devastated the way it was. Actually, it didn't make sense at all. Overnight, Serrano had been reduced to a barren wasteland where no life existed. In addition, planets throughout the Outer Rim were going dark. They were being consumed by the resurrected Darth Nihilus as he made his way through the galaxy, consuming the life of planets. Now, it's important to note that even during the Old Republic era, Nihilus did not really care about the cause of the Sith. Despite aligning himself with the Sith, his only real allegiance was his own hunger for power. Upon returning, this goal would remain the same. Nihilus had taken over the body of Count Dooku, and though Dooku's body had not been corrupted by a devastating superweapon like his original body had, Nihilus' spirit still hungered for power. As Nihilus made his way through the galaxy, he used his incredible power to assemble a fleet of old starships he found at the site of a Clone War battle. In the Old Republic days, Nihilus used the Force to lift his starship the Ravager from the destruction of Malachor V. This was the planet that he was on when the mass shadow generator was activated, creating a wound in the Force within Nihilus. Nihilus then reprogrammed the battle droids found on these ships to serve him. The benefit to the droid crew was that they were completely obedient and fulfilled their programmed duties without any real oversight on Nihilus' end. This allowed the Sith Lord to focus on finding his next well of power to drink from. The drawback to the droids was that they provided no immediate source of energy to consume, as they were not living beings. Nihilus redubbed his pieced-together separatist dreadnought the Ravager II in honor of his past. The Dark Lord of Hunger had everything he needed to continue his quest to consume all life and energy in the galaxy. And because Nihilus had no allegiance other than his own hunger, both Republic and Separatist-controlled worlds were the targets of Nihilus' hunger. On Coruscant, the Jedi Council was unaware of what or who they were facing in the Outer Rim. They only knew that a hunk of junk fleet was carving a path of destruction through some smaller Outer Rim worlds. The only known survivor so far was a pilot who had been on his way to the planet of Kularin to fuel up on his way to Tatooine. The pilot described what he saw as more than death and destruction. It was an absence of life. It was clear that the experience had shaken this pilot. Though many Jedi were occupied with the war, the Council would send Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and Ahsoka Tano to investigate this unknown but growing threat. Arriving at what was left of Kularin, the Jedi detected no signs of life. The planet was dark, but soon they saw a small cluster of what looked like separatist ships gathering just beyond the planet's surface. It appeared that these ships no longer functioned, or barely functioned, so Anakin unknowingly piloted their shuttle toward Darth Nihilus' Ravager II. The Jedi trio boarded the ship without issue. Nihilus could sense that they were Jedi, and allowed them to board his ship. His anger rose as he remembered the Jedi who had destroyed his original body. He would deal with these new Jedi swiftly and personally. Back on Coruscant, in the Chancellor's office, Palpatine looked out his great window that overlooked the city. He could sense an abnormal shift in the dark side. Arrival. Palpatine called to his aide, Mas Amida, and requested his ship be prepared for a personal trip. Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan made their way to the bridge of Nihilus' command ship. Because the crew appeared to be regular battle droids and it was a separatist cruiser, the Jedi would think that the separatists have created a super weapon that is capable of destroying worlds. The Jedi reach the command bridge where they come face to face with Darth Nihilus. The Jedi would attempt to speak with Nihilus, but they would only be met with silence. Igniting their lightsabers, the Jedi begin to surround Nihilus. Ahsoka would make the first move, only to be tossed aside by a quick flick of Nihilus' wrist. Angered, Anakin rushes towards Nihilus, and seeing the power of Nihilus, Obi-Wan quickly follows so that Anakin would not face him alone. The two Jedi flanked Nihilus, who at this point has ignited his own lightsaber. Though he preferred to utilize his force powers, Nihilus was also very skilled with a lightsaber, but in this case, his own lightsaber was lost to time. So Nihilus wielded the lightsaber of Count Dooku. Seeing the Count's lightsaber, Anakin and Obi-Wan would realize that the Count must be dead, and that this could possibly be the elusive Darth Sidious. After only a few moments of battle, Nihilus would slash his lightsaber across Obi-Wan's shoulder, causing the Jedi to drop to the ground. He then uses the Force to begin consuming the power within Anakin. Nihilus had never sensed such power in one individual before. Anakin was helpless to this attack. He stood frozen in front of Nihilus as the mysterious Sith Lord seemed to feed off of his power. Anakin could literally feel the life leaving his body. As Anakin began to fade out of consciousness, he saw a hooded figure step into view. And as his vision blurred, a burst of bluish-purple light erupted from the hooded figure. Anakin fell to the ground, released from Nihilus' grip, but now unconscious. All three Jedi lay unconscious and injured, but Darth Sidious had now entered the command bridge to face this new Sith rival. Sidious looked at the mask of Nihilus. He knew who he was. He knew the power he had. But Sidious found Nihilus repulsive. He was no cunning Sith Lord. He was a beast, no better than the Wampas of Hoth who only existed to hunt for their next meal. Sidious would exterminate him. Nihilus had taken Sidious's current apprentice, Count Dooku, but Sidious was not going to let him take his future apprentice, Anakin Skywalker. The two Sith Lords engaged in a duel that combined unbelievably quick lightsaber strikes and powerful dark side force abilities. The command bridge was filled with flashes of red, bolts of lightning, and powerful shockwaves. The duel between Sidious and Nihilus would last longer than the one between Nihilus and the Jedi. But suddenly an idea struck Sidious. As he sensed that Anakin was coming to, as well as the other Jedi, he baited Nihilus over to where Ahsoka Tano was coming to after being knocked unconscious. Sidious needed to make Anakin angry. Just as he predicted, Ahsoka got to her feet and foolishly jumped into the fight. He could tell that she was confused at the sight of two Sith fighting each other. And capitalizing on that confusion, Sidious used the Force to lift her in the air and slam her back to the ground. She wasn't dead, but Anakin didn't know that from where he was. Sidious laughed as he sensed Anakin's anger boil. If the galaxy was going to disrupt his plans by resurrecting an ancient Sith Lord, he would use the opportunity to test his future apprentice. Suddenly, Nihilus and Sidious's duel came to a halt as both Sith were lifted into the air. Neither had the ability to move. Anakin Skywalker was holding both of them in place with a power only the Chosen One could wield. Sidious laughed in approval. Anakin used the Force to slam both Sith to the ground. Sidious knew that he was taking a risk by leaving himself vulnerable, but he often took risks when Anakin Skywalker was involved. Anakin advanced on the two Sith. Sidious's laugh echoed through the command bridge. Nihilus remained silent. Igniting his lightsaber, Anakin reached out to Nihilus with the Force. And before Nihilus could respond, his mask was ripped from his face and flew toward Anakin. With anger in his eyes, Anakin slashed the mask from the air with his lightsaber. He did not know that the mask was the source of the Sith Lord's power. As his lightsaber passed through the mask, a powerful shockwave of energy blasted everyone in the room back. Anakin regained consciousness in time to see Obi-Wan helping Ahsoka up while clutching his injured shoulder. There was no sign of the Sith Lords, only the shards of the mask Anakin had destroyed. The Jedi returned to Coruscant only to report that they did not know what happened, and that the Sith must have been behind the devastation of the planets Nihilus had consumed. Meanwhile, Darth Sidious stood over a medical bay that held his apprentice Count Dooku. The destruction of Nihilus's mask had destroyed the ancient Sith Lord's spirit and freed Dooku. As Dooku awoke, Sidious scolded him for letting his curiosity get the best of him. After hitting Dooku with enough Force lightning to make his point, he sent Dooku away to continue the fight against the Republic. Nihilus was an unexpected distraction, Sidious thought, but the Clone War must continue. It was the backbone of his plan to destroy the Jedi and establish his rule over the galaxy. Sidious watched Dooku as he left. In time, he would have a new apprentice, one far younger and more powerful. Well, that concludes this fanfiction. I really felt that it was important to show that Darth Sidious is the man running the show. No matter which ancient Sith returned, by the point of the Clone Wars, Sidious had orchestrated such an intricate plan that he was virtually unstoppable. The time of the ancient Sith, like Nihilus, had passed, and I wanted to highlight that even with Nihilus returning, it is Sidious's time to write galactic history. I also thought it was important to dive into the power of Anakin as the Chosen One. I felt like it was interesting to have Sidious utilize this moment against Nihilus to test his future apprentice's power. Anyways, let me know what you guys thought of this series in the comments below. I'll catch you in the next video. May the Force be with you.